Hello and welcome to Random Fandom Chats. I'm Dee Dee.
I'm Tandra.
And this is Annabeth. Here we talk about anything sci-fi and fantasy related from books, TV shows, movies, comics, games, and today we are covering Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Now this is actually probably the Harry Potter book that I have read the least, so I actually went through and reread the book before we did this vlog.
In some ways, it's probably my least favorite.
In some ways, I would probably agree with you.
But on the other hand, there's some parts of it I really thought were important for wraps-ups for the whole series. And some things that we learn and some things, you know, we find out that I think are really cool. So in some ways, it's a really good one in the series. So
it's definitely a good book. It's just probably not my favorite of the series.
It's pretty dark throughout a lot.
It is very dark, and I think a lot of people agree that it's probably one of their least favorites because it's so different than the other ones in terms of tone, in just general theme and feel. Because this is the only book where they're not at Hogwarts anymore. They're out on their own. They're in the midst of this war, like, that's, you know, more prevalent than ever before.
Which is kind of weird because throughout most of the book, you don't even see the war going on.
Exactly.
Which is kind of interesting, but you hear little snippets here and there of what's going on.
And they are involved in the war, but for the most part, they're really kind of isolated in their Hogwarts area and, you know, their 15, 16-year-old lives at the time, or whatever age they were at the
Well,
time.
and even in this book, they're engrossed in their little project and their thing that the
and
three
sometimes
are
they
doing.
lose sight of the fact that there is such a huge war going on.
Yeah, and so throughout most of the book, we don't know a whole lot about what's going on in the outer wizarding world that much. At least not until the end when everybody shows up and you know,
The Battle of
everything
Hogwarts.
happens. So yeah, there are some things about the book that you were kind of thinking about and running through your head. And
Well, the book definitely makes you think a lot. It brings to light some facts and history behind the characters that you never really see before, especially what a lot of people like with Severus Snape. You know, you get a lot more of his backstory, why he did what he did, that he's not as bad as we always thought he was.
he's still not as great as we'd like him to be.
As some people would think, but that's just our personal opinion.
Yeah, just because we find out more of the reasoning behind some of his choices, it still doesn't make him a great person, in my opinion.
In our opinion. I understand why other people do like him after finding out this thing about his history, but just not for us, I think.
Which we'll get into that someday if we ever pull Snape out as a character. We can get into that whole thing. I liked finding out more about Albus Dumbledore's.
You got a lot of disillusionment when it came to Albus Dumbledore, and a lot of people really actually hate his character after reading the book.
Well, you definitely don't see him as his, you know, even like what Harry saw him as, this great hero
this
godlike
defender
figure. You know, once again, as we like with a lot of our characters, it brings him more down to human status and
less, admirable hero worship standards.
Well, and think about it. A lot of people go through certain stages of their life and believe in certain things or think about certain things, and then they learn more and have more life experiences and other things. And Dumbledore was no different. You know, he went through a lot of different phases, a lot of different things that shaped his thoughts and his actions and what he, you know, tended to do in later life. And I think it just makes him like everybody else. You know, I mean, I think he turned into a really, really great wizard, but he definitely had some flaws.
He definitely made a lot of mistakes. And I think a lot of times, I think that a lot of the fans of Harry Potter kind of did what Harry did, and they put him up on such a high pedestal that when they found out that he did make mistakes and didn't always do the greatest thing or the thing that we would consider the best, you know, once they found that out, they really didn't like him anymore. They kind of just let him fall out of favor with them, which, like I said, you know, I recognize that he, you know, did all these things, and I don't excuse them, but I don't hate him because of it, you know.
Not necessarily. I mean, there were some things I wish he
would have
done differently, but, you know, that's true for a lot of people.
That was part of the story.
Yeah, and it was needed. Now, what did you think about some of the deaths in the book? Because, of course, I'm assuming most people who are watching this have already read the series and know what goes on. I mean, it's been out for so long and there's so much things out there. But there are a bunch of spoilers in this conversation, I think.
Obviously.
But what did you think about some of the deaths in the book?
Well, it's definitely the Harry Potter book with the most deaths.
Which makes sense.
Right, because it's a war, and it's at the high point of the war and at the end of the war, so it makes sense. I don't think that I've ever cried so much during reading a book as I have this. I still have never cried as much as I did with this book.
Well, yeah, there's a few notable deaths that make you really, Dobby especially.
Oh, yes. I will always cry whenever I read Dobby's
But now, did you
death.
think maybe some people died that shouldn't, or maybe somebody should have died that didn't?
Well, one death in particular that we talk about quite a bit is Fred Weasley. And it's not that we don't think any of the Weasley kids should have died. We think it should have been Percy.
I think Percy would have been much more dramatic. He had been estranged from the family for so long. He was kind of semi on the wrong side for a while. And he comes back. And he
makes amends.
He just comes back in the final days, and if he died heroically,
that would have been a fantastic end to him.
It would have, and it would have made that character a better character. It would have made their loss very, very deep because he's now come back and now he's gone. I also don't like the idea of splitting the twins up. I mean, I know you can say, well, there has to be deaths and da-da-da-da, but I really feel like the twins were almost a single unit.
Well, especially with the way they are. A lot of twins aren't that way.
But
they really are individual. But these two, they were so much alike, and you get the idea that they probably never spent more than a few hours apart at a time.
And it makes you have trouble thinking of how George is going to be able to carry on anything without him. I mean, you'd almost think he would be like go insane or something at that point and not be able to function without him, because it's like losing
a bit of yourself at that point.
Right. And that would be true for any twins who have lost a twin, but I just feel like I think it would have been more dramatic for the story and better if Percy had died, and I think it would have been better keeping the twins together, but it's just me. Now, we also talk a little bit about Lupin and Tonks.
Yes, I really wish that Tonks could have survived. I understand J.K. Rowling's decision to have them both die because she wanted to reinforce that there are orphans in war and a lot of times parents don't survive. But I just really felt like Tonks should have survived because her and Lupin had such a short time together. They had all kinds of strife with just their relationship in general, mostly on Lupin's part. I'm sorry. Well, I love Lupin, but I'm always going to want to punch him in the head for that. And she just gave birth to her son. I never really realized until my last reread of this, but they literally only had about a month together with their son before the Battle of Hogwarts. And I just really would have liked it if at least one of them should have survived. As much as I like Lupin, I think that it was probably okay that he died, because if he had to lose Tonks, he already lost so many important people in his life at that point.
It might have been too much for him.
It might have just been a little bit too much for him, even with his son there, so...
I was also kind of sad that Ted Tonks died.
Yeah.
I mean, we barely saw him as a character. I mean, but just the idea that he left. I mean, for some reason, that minor death in some ways just kind of hit me just a little bit like, oh, gee, it's kind of sad that he's
definitely
gone. Now, was there any other particular people that you thought maybe should have died that didn't?
I've never really thought about that in particular. I was a little bit disappointed that Hedwig died at the beginning.
It seemed kind of senseless to me.
Yeah,
It didn't seem to move the story along, and it didn't seem to help with the story any.
I understand that J.K. Rowling wanted Harry, Ron, and Hermione to feel very isolated during their time in the book, and especially Harry. She really wanted him to feel cut off from the rest of the wizarding community, but she could have stayed with the Weasleys. Yeah. And just the fact that her death was so senseless, I think, which of course, in series like this, in situations like this, you're going to have senseless death. But honestly, I think the main part that annoyed me about it was that her and Harry were at odds with each other when she died.
Yeah.
During
that
the whole
makes it
first
even
part of
worse.
the book, she was, giving him the cold feather, per se, and, shunning him because she was upset with him, and then she dies.
Well, and
it's just really
honestly,
sad.
I didn't see any reason why she had to be in her cage in the first place. She would have been smart enough to get to wherever Harry was going or going to be.
Yeah, he could have, let her loose and had her fly to the burrow a week ago.
So she didn't even have to be in the situation to die. So it just didn't seem like a death that made much sense to me. And so, yeah, and it didn't really strike me as hard as you think it would have in some ways either, which was, at least not on rereading. Now, the first read, I think it is all
It was like, oh, Hedwig's dead.
Yeah, but, well, and that's just it, too. You almost don't feel like it hit Harry as hard as it might have, because, that was his first connection, really.
Well, they state that specifically, that it was his first connection.
And so you would have thought it would have hit him just a little harder than it kind of did. Of course, there was a lot going on when it happened, and, a lot happening, and he didn't have a chance to really mourn her, but, yeah, it just, I don't know, just the whole death just didn't seem to be written as well as we would have liked.
One character that I don't necessarily think he should have died, but one character I really did expect to die during my first read of this book is I expected Hagrid to die, to be honest. And J.K. Rowling has even said that she really considered very hard killing off Hagrid.
And it would have made sense to do so. I'm not sure how I would have felt about it. I suppose it would have depended on how it happened.
Yeah, how he died. And J.K. Rowling said the only real reason she didn't kill him is because the scene towards the end where Hagrid is carrying Harry's body towards Hogwarts, she had that in her mind, and she just couldn't really get, detach herself from the vision of that, especially since Hagrid was the first person who brought Harry into the
And it is a really cool vision, him, carrying this lifeless body. And
supposedly lifeless.
Yeah. So that is a pretty cool thought in your head. That was the other thing that we've talked about some with the series, and because this is the final book in the series, it's probably a good thing to bring up, is how much we thought she was very good at integrating things throughout all of the story.
Everything is interwoven, and almost nothing is meaningless.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting when you go back and you read the series, how something that seems so minor in one book will come up in a different book and be something kind of significant.
In the fifth book, they're cleaning out Godric's Hollow, and they mention passing a locket around and then tossing in the garbage.
Yeah,
turns out there's
place.
Oh, did I say Godric's Hollow?
Yeah,
Sorry.
you're thinking of where they go to. Now, that was one scene in the book I didn't like that much, was when they went to Godric's Hollow. I had a little trouble following that scene the first time I read it.
The whole thing with Nagini
and
until the backshot.
But yeah, trying to understand what was happening and what was going on. That whole understanding, I'm not sure if I just didn't read it real well, but I was having trouble visualizing what was happening throughout all of that. And then, of course, Harry's wand breaks and everything, and all that during that, and it just, I don't know, that scene just is not one of my, I have a really hard time with that scene.
Just that whole chapter. It was interesting to see them return to Godric's Hollow and Harry, visit the place that he was.
Oh, and that part was cool. Yeah, and it's interesting, how she interwove, once again, things in like having the symbol, the Deathly Hallows symbol on, the gravestone, and finding out that Dumbledore was also had been in that village, and all that. That was kind of cool. Having some of those, things interwoven and history brought up. It kind of would have been nice to actually talk to Matilda. Would have been kind of cool.
Yeah.
Maybe just because
Unfortunately, Nagini had to come in her room and everything.
Yeah, right?
Darn Voldemort.
Now, you had mentioned, when we were talking about some of the things that we thought that she knew throughout the whole story, and that okay, she knew this, and you figure it out later on. But there was one or two things you had mentioned that you thought maybe she had changed throughout the series, and that it started out maybe one way, and maybe she had changed it to another way. You were mentioning to me when we were talking about some stuff.
One thing I did mention, and it doesn't really have much impact on this book itself, but I always found it very odd that in the first book especially, people seem to revere James and Lily as this amazing, perfect, ideal couple and whatnot. And they also stated that the two of them were head boy and girl at the school. And then come book 5, you find out that James wasn't that admirable. He was pretty much a bully, and he definitely was not a prefect, therefore he was not head boy. So I think that she originally probably started out with James being more like Lily, more rule-abiding, more of a good person at his core and whatnot, and I'm not sure what made her decide to change that.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what changed some of that. Because, when we were talking about it, we thought maybe if Snape hadn't have done what he had done, that, once we find out in this book some more of their history, that maybe they would have been an okay couple at one
Lily
point.
and Severus. I could have totally seen that. If he hadn't gone to the dark side, I could have totally seen him and Lily together.
And it makes you almost wonder, why or how she ended up
with James. It's like, they stated that especially after 5th year, he really started to get better and become less of a bully. But if they were supposed to have this almost epic proportion romance that, people seem to admire when they talk about Lily and James Potter, you'd really think that they wouldn't have started out as pretty much enemies. Or
which
at least
I guess some people do, but...
Well, and of course, people, James and Lily are dead. They're always going to kind of prop them up on a pedestal and kind of smudge history a little bit and go, oh yeah, they were always meant to be together. They were always perfect for each other.
Now, one of the things I did like about the book was in the end when they have the final battle and, everything's going on. I really like Mrs. Weasley finally...
Yes. Showing her skill
showing
as a witch.
that she's
she
not
took down Bellatrix Lestrange, one of the worst Death Eaters ever, and she just took her out, man. Yeah, and that's pretty.
And
amazing.
It was kind of nice to see that she wasn't just this,
dutiful housewife, mother type.
Person.
That she was tough and
and that
she
was
held her own
nice.
in a duel against a Death Eater.
Yeah. Another thing was I was kind of surprised about Aberforth Dumbledore because she never really brings him up all that much in the other books, if any, and he's just such a strange character.
She almost made it sound at the beginning of the series like she hinted at an adult theme that I was surprised she hinted at in a book made for children. Now later we discover that the thing he supposedly did with a goat wasn't what we originally thought. It was him casting weird charms on a goat.
Makes you wonder why, but okay.
Makes you wonder which charms he was casting on a goat.
He's just a little odd fella, I think.
But then when you meet him in the 7th book, he seems pretty sane. He doesn't seem like a weird...
So he was just kind of an odd character all the way around. He was odd that he was in the book. I don't know if she threw him in there because she needed some connection to Dumbledore that helps Harry at some point, or...
I don't know. I don't know if she always meant for the barman at the Hog's Head to be Aberforth. I don't know.
I don't know, because that is one thing that's kind of hard to see throughout the series. Most of the other connections make sense. That one, I'm not real sure about.
That one, you're not sure if she just decided to add, or if it was always meant to be there, or what. Now, one thing that I really didn't think about until this last reread is... I was very surprised that J.K. Rowling did not take this book as an opportunity to show that not all Slytherins are bad, except for what she did with Snape. Because they're talking about how, before the beginning of the Battle of Hogwarts, how they're trying to get all the students out, and the ones who are of age are if they want to, can stay back and fight. And she didn't have any Slytherins stay back.
Yeah, you'd think at least a couple of them
Especially by the point that this book came out, a lot of people were really like, hey, J.K. Rowling should really probably showcase that not all Slytherins are evil. And she herself was even starting to
And she
admit
had the opportunity to do that here.
And I was surprised that she didn't, because she specifically stated and, emphasized the fact that it was just Gryffindors, Hufflepuffs, and Ravenclaws that stayed back and fought.
Oh, yeah, she said basically all the Slytherins.
And, disapproved and, went against the Carrows at Hogwarts. She really emphasized the fact that Slytherins did not do these things. And I just... really am surprised that she did not take this opportunity to show that not all Slytherins are evil, except for, of course, the
only Slytherins she ever really showcases in the stories are all pretty much... I mean, Slytherins have the qualities of being kind of out for themselves and ambitious and all that anyway. I mean, they all kind of lean towards that. But any of them that she ever showcased at all, like Umbridge and other people. They were all kind of snots. And none of them were really very cool people, and so it's too bad that she couldn't have had some in there that were okay, even if she didn't mention who they were that much or whatever, you know, or really delve into their characters that much. Just mentioning them would have been cool.
Right. One character that I really would have liked to see her delve into more, and I understand why she couldn't in the series, but I really want to know more about Regulus Black. I mean, here you have a character, again, he's a Slytherin, he's been brought up by an extremely prejudiced family, and you get the idea that he even held some of that prejudice himself, but when push came to shove and he was put in the Death Eater inner circle and whatnot, he did not agree with the things that they were doing, and not only did he oppose Voldemort, but he outright went after the thing that he knew was most dear to Voldemort in an attempt to try and bring him down.
And that mostly happened because of what happened with Kreacher.
That was definitely a turning point. And
and so obviously Kreacher was somebody that meant something to him, and he felt, you know, a little bit more of a kinship to, and he didn't like the way, you know, he was being treated. So whatever it was that took him to turn, at least he kind of did turn and feel, and he was young when he was with the Death Eater.
Yeah, he was only 19 when he died.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, you can change a lot in your mind as you get older and whatnot.
Well, and just the fact that he cared about Kreacher enough from coming from a family that would pretty much treat house elves like less than dirt. I mean, that's an amazing mindset for somebody so young and so integrated in that kind of environment to have. And, you know, when he took Kreacher to the lake, he himself drank the potion. He didn't make Kreacher drink the potion. He sacrificed himself pretty much to let Kreacher escape with the locket. And
I just knew he was going to die anyway with Voldemort.
With Voldemort, very true. Yeah. But I don't really know much about him, but I really kind of admire what I do know about him. And I really wish we knew more about him and his time at Hogwarts and his struggle with, you know, these ideals and this life that's kind of been forced upon him.
Yeah, so that would have been cool. Of course, there's so much more that could be done with the Harry Potter universe, and so much more that could be explored.
It's so rich with just characters and stories and like even just short stories and yeah.
All right, well, I think that's a pretty good one. Let me see what we're gonna do next time. We kind of lost our mascot today. She
decided she didn't want to be part of this.
She ran off.
Alrighty, let's see what we got here. The character of Batman.
Okay.
That's going to be an interesting one. I will have no problem talking about Batman. Alright, if you guys like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. If you like what we do, subscribe. Leave us some comments below. Tell us what you thought of this book. If you like it, if it's your favorite, if it's your least favorite, if you have some points that you wish we would have brought up, feel free to let us know.
We'll see you next time.